All right, welcome to the Dirt Road with Mike and Rick.
Welcome. Thanks for tuning in and watching today.
That's Mike. I'm Rick. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a combat veteran, Purple Heart recipient, retired NYPD detective, and now I am a pest control dirtbag.
And I am a retired school teacher, taught American history and government for about 32 years. We're just trying to have a conversation over here. Hopefully you guys enjoy and comment and subscribe and get back to us and let us know what you think. So, Big day today, Mike.
Yeah, July 13th, 2024. Likely Antifa member, but we'll see what the reporting says when it comes out truly. But somebody, unknown person, took shots at President Trump and grazed him on the ear. And killed somebody in the stands behind him, apparently.
And brought back memories. I remember in the 9th grade walking home from school, going into Piano People, the record store by my house, and being told that Reagan just got shot. Last time anything like this has happened in this country. But,
That's right. I remember seeing it on TV.
Yeah.
So I've seen it then on TV.
What do you think? Have you seen this coming or what?
Yeah, I think it was likely, right? I mean, even what last week Biden was telling his donors on a private call, supposedly, that the time is over for the debate stuff. It's time to put a bullseye on Trump. And that went out everywhere. It hit Twitterverse, or X, I'm sorry, and then went out everywhere on social media. And you've had, since at least Obama's first term, this weaponization of the left, this very much fanning of the flames, the rhetoric and everything else kind of pushing them further and further in their violent escapades to the point now where we had 2020 and beyond, we had them burning entire cities. How many people were killed then by Antifa, BLM, all those other ones rioting? We were told it was mostly peaceful riots of people being murdered. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a rough time. What bothers me though is that if you're gonna tell people that somebody's Hitler, and you're gonna tell people that this person is a quote unquote threat to democracy.
Yep.
Why not? I mean, honestly, Mike, if you were convinced somebody was Hitler and you had a shot at him,
yeah, you're going to take the shot.
You're going to take the fucking guy out.
Absolutely. That's why that rhetoric is so inflammatory, why it's so dangerous, why it just should never happen.
No.
And the media is just as complicit in parroting this out constantly. This narrative that this guy is somehow a threat to anything. What he's a threat to is the establishment and their ability to commit corrupt crimes and make money.
Yeah, and they don't believe it for a minute. I mean, I think the people that watch believe. But these people who talk about it, they don't believe.
Oh no, they know they're full of crap. They know they're full of shit.
They absolutely do.
100%. They have to. I mean, you can't be. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of them that are just useful idiots and they're stupid and they're just there to be a pretty face, reciting whatever narrative they're given. But there's far too many there that have been there a long time, are intelligent enough, or at least aware enough to understand the real mechanics behind our current system of government and the corruption it enables.
Yeah.
So.
And I blame the media more than anything else because politicians are supposed to be dirtbags. The media is supposed to keep an eye on the dirtbags, not a system. And that's the problem I have. I mean, I grew up reading newspapers, and not that they didn't have slants; they of course did.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could pretty much trust what you read. If you read it in the New York Times, you read it in the Wall Street Journal.
They might skew it a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but it was still factual.
Well, you knew it. You knew, especially living here in New York, where we had tons of newspapers. You knew that the New York Times leaned left. You knew that the New York Post leaned right.
Right, yep.
But you knew what you were reading, and usually they would hold government accountable. Remember, it was the New York Times that printed the Pentagon Papers, right?
That's right, yeah. Look, what amazes me is, right, you take the left, right, the modern left, and you go back 60 years to, the Vietnam era, where the left was all about, fight against the government, fight against the man, and try and, destroy it and bring down the system and all these things. And now look what they're doing. They've weaponized every aspect of government against regular people in every way possible. It's absolutely amazing.
Sure.
They're fostering an invasion of their own country by 21 million, I think the approximate estimate is now, of illegals being brought into the country. And not to just letting them cross the border now, but they're actually flying them in. They're chartering flights, setting it up and firing them in. And the State Department is assisting in that. They're helping set up these remote sites and an app to help get these people on flights into the U.S.
But the rhetoric is what I mean. Listen, if Donald Trump had stood a half an inch to his right,
he'd be dead.
He'd be dead right now.
He'd be dead.
He'd be dead.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's you obviously can't blame Joe Biden or blame any particular person.
No, I blame him.
Other than how? I mean he's not. He's doing what he does, but Trump's pretty flamboyant too and inflammatory also. No.
I think to a certain degree, but not in the same way. I don't think he never calls for violence against people. He tells people patriotically and peacefully, constantly. He makes sure, he's careful. Listen, he says a lot of crazy things, and don't get me wrong, he does. He says a lot of really. Some of his nicknames are hysterical. I think they're maybe inappropriate, but they're hysterical. But he's never called for violence in anybody, and he's always ever kind of came out very strongly, actually, against that violent side of things. He doesn't want the violence. He doesn't want the destruction. He doesn't want people getting hurt. He wants Americans to be Americans and to get back to prosperity and rebuilding of a country that should be strong because the world needs it. You know, look at what's happened in the last 3.5 years of Biden, right? We put this old, decrepit pervert in the White House, you know, who gets installed because he was not elected. Now, I'll never agree that the 2020 election was 100% stolen. I'm a detective. I believe in evidence, and I have seen so much evidence at this point that I think any jury would be convinced if they were just simply presented with the information in a proper manner. It's never going to happen.
Except no court was convinced, Mike.
Oh, no. There were 47 or so lawsuits. 39 were dismissed outright because they were left-leaning judges and they wouldn't even hear the case.
And what about all the Trump
Multiple ones
judges?
went forward, and they're still going forward in court right now. And they're just stalled in court. So you got to understand the court system, right? So there's state level, federal level. Depending upon the nature of the suit, right? You go to either state or federal level, depending on what it is.
Sure.
It's a federal race, so everything should have been in the federal courts. But it wasn't. They steered these cases to the courts where they knew they had willing partners in the judges, like Merchan or Engeron or Ergeron, whatever that burrito's name is.
Well, those aren't about 2020.
Right, but I'm just saying a similar circumstance. They took the cases and steered them where they needed them. They suppressed evidence, but if you look at like Maricopa County and the evidence that came out of there for the ballot images, right? 300 and plus thousand ballot images of votes that can't be found. They can't verify the vote count in that county. Just that one county. And that takes that entire state back into play, where it would have gone to Trump instead. So, like, but you stack up, like, if it was one instance like that, or there was one, like, little circumstance in that nature that was, like, saying, okay, maybe it could have happened, I'd be like, okay, maybe it could have happened, right? At the end of the day, it is what it is. But when you stack everything that came out of, like, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, so many affidavits, so many people who went on the record with an affidavit under the threat of perjury and also incriminated themselves in their own statements saying, listen, I was part of this operation, I did this, but I feel guilty or I'm remorseful, whatever it is, and gave a full-on affidavit. That's a court document affidavit. That's a charging instrument, sure. Right? So that's a pretty heavy thing to do. That's you saying, listen, I'm guilty of these felonies, but I'm coming clean now because I feel like it's the right thing to do. That's a hell of a thing to put on paper. So for me, when you add all these disparate things together and you put all these pieces back together again, that spells a stolen election, a soft coup.
So then I would have to ask you, isn't that kind of rhetoric just as bad as the rhetoric we were talking about with Biden before? I mean, if we get people in America thinking that, all the Trump voters thinking that they were cheated out of an election.
They already believe that, trust me.
Well, then why shouldn't they get that?
Not much. So, something about me, I think I left out of the bio, right? I ran for Congress in the Republican primary in New York's 2nd District in 2022. Rick was an excellent advisor and probably one I should have listened to more, and I probably would have actually won that race and not be sitting here now doing this. But that's okay, we're here now. But as far as I think 99% of the MAGA people I speak with on a regular basis, 100% believe the election was stolen.
Well, I'm in the 1%.
Exactly.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And
it's good to be skeptical. You should be skeptical until you can be presented with an honest case. You should be skeptical.
But it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't think it. It's like I was saying to Lisa. This can't be an article of faith. It either was or it wasn't. You know, Lisa asked me before, do you believe it was stolen? I said it's not about belief. You know,
well,
I can't believe it was stolen.
I believe in evidence.
And so do I.
And I've seen so much of it now over the last, really, I saw a lot at the beginning. There were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me. You know, there's I forget the name of the equation now. Forgive me, I'll come back with it. But there's an equation that they're using like in math and economics and things like that to check the curve on certain things, right? To kind of show where it's false data. It's like an indicator of false data or data that's being manipulated. And if you look at the Biden vote count, you know, that is like a textbook example of this formula. And I'll remember it again. I put it up on Facebook at the time and said, this looks like that. And then I got fact-checked and then locked out of my Facebook account for about 2 months for putting that up.
Look, there were obviously, Mike, there were shenanigans that went on. And
there's always shenanigans, though. But there's been, I mean, back, the 60s, right? And JFK's, they said it was shenanigans. And
yeah, they say
it's happened throughout history.
JFK stole West Virginia, people say. But
right.
it has happened throughout history, and there's always dirty politics. Yep. I just think Trump got outplayed. I think COVID was used as an excuse to just change everything.
Well, the mail-in balloting
real quickly
huge.
With the mail-in balloting.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between that and stolen, because if you're asking me to believe that my vote no longer counts in this country, then there's nothing left.
Right, and
There's nothing left.
and that's just it, and that's the Rubicon, right? That's the Rubicon.
But
that's
I can't get there without not just videos of somebody with a briefcase or a truck or something like that. This went before many courts. It went before many state legislatures.
Well, it was never actually heard. It was never heard, though. That's just it. It was
They
shut
dismissed.
down.
They were all dismissed.
Well, they wouldn't be even heard. They dismissed it before they were even hearings.
But these were Trump-appointed lawyers. Trump-appointed judges.
Some of them were. Some of them weren't. But the point is, like, they immediately got rid of it, right? They said, no, we're not going to even look at this evidence. There was no actual hearing. See, if you had, like, a hearing in a court of law, and there actually was a hearing where they said, okay, we're going to look at all this evidence, we're going to compile it, we're going to take a look at it, we're going to see what it really says. I think you'd have a much different picture of what's really happened than is what's being portrayed now by the mainstream. Because I think there really is a tremendous amount. Like I said, I'm a detective. I believe in evidence. I don't believe in supposition or people's theories or things like that. Just to me, show me the evidence.
Well, sure.
Show me the smoking gun. Show me the bullet hole. Show me the body.
I'm a historian. I mean, I never investigated murders like you did, but we investigate the past.
That's just it. It's investigative. It's always the same technique.
Look, I think of it like this. In 2016, you had half this country believing that Donald Trump, who they claim is an idiot, somehow became this James Bond figure and colluded with another foreign leader to steal an election.
The Steele dossier. The PP tape.
And you had half the country believing this crap. And I know how I feel about those people, and I would assume they would feel the same way about me if I'm just jumping out there and saying
no, I agree.
2020 was stolen.
I agree. I'm not
there
trying
has to be proof. They could never prove the collusion thing.
I think that
but there are people who still believe it. And they could never prove this, but there are people who still believe it.
I think they can prove it now. I think there's more than enough evidence now to say beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a tremendous amount of cheating.
Well, maybe so, but I think on this day...
Like, the most clear example of, like, electoral cheating that I could talk about that's more recent. Out. Sorry for the interruptions. Lee Zeldin's campaign against Hochul, right? 340-something thousand more votes than there are voters in the state that went to Hochul. To me, that's a pretty. It's not the smoking gun, but that's a pretty big piece of circumstantial evidence to say something's not right. Something's rotten here.
Something's definitely not right. Something's rotten, and you know as well as I've been down on this country for a long time for many reasons.
Yeah.
But I still do consider myself patriotic. I still do love America.
Absolutely.
And if elections don't count in America anymore, there's nothing left. There's no reason. There's no reason for me to wave a flag.
If elections don't count and they can decide the winner anyway, then you're already living under tyranny.
And that's why I don't want to believe it unless there is hardcore evidence that's proven.
I think that the rest of the evidence, or I think a more full-bodied version is probably more accurate to say of the evidence will come out over the next year or two.
Well, we'll see.
I think we're kind of heading down that road now. It seems like more and more is being exposed.
If it's really true, it may come out 20 years from now. Who knows?
Here's a good question for you. I never asked Rick this, so you guys get to see it firsthand. With me, excuse me.
Well, I'm going to take a hit of the vape first if it's this big.
Roswell, New Mexico, alien aircraft or experimental?
I have no idea. I don't know. I just know that on this day we almost lost a former president and possibly a future president to an assassin, and things have to change around this country. Because again, circling back to where we were at the beginning before we sign off here, if they're going to go around and convince people that this guy is Hitler, then this is the logical conclusion.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
I'll tell you right now, if I had an opportunity to take Hitler out,
you're taking him
out in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah, because you're saving 14 million lives of just people in the camps. Not to mention how many soldiers died.
So if they're going to run around talking about Trump being Hitler and he's going to be a dictator and he's taking away your rights, I'm not excusing the person who shot at him. By no means. That person, I'm glad he's dead in a way, but I wish he was alive so we can get more information out of him.
I wish too.
This is the logical conclusion. This is where we're getting in this country.
That person was never meant to live, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at like any kind of like assassination attempt that's done by our government, which they do, and people don't want to believe that, but they do. They kill a lot of people, mostly overseas. But like Africa, for instance, right? They have a leader in Africa. They want those rare earth minerals or whatever other resources they have, and the current regime is not willing to play ball. They'll foster a revolution to go in and wipe those people out. So
we've done it many times.
That's why we're hated around the world, and people don't realize that. They don't understand that this started after World War II in the 50s. This American imperialism, that the left kind of gets half right. They don't really get it right, but they get it half right because they're just too involved in their own ideology to see the reality of it. But the reality is that it's not colonialism by, say, moving in your people and settling them there. It's colonialism by moving in your companies and exploiting their resources.
Hey, and I got an idea. Why don't we make that the topic of our next video? For now, let's just pray for Donald Trump.
I agree. Pray for Donald
And
Trump.
I don't care what side you're on. Pray
No.
for that man.
It doesn't matter.
Well, you know what? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. If you're out there cheering on any political candidate or anybody in the public eye being assassinated or attempted to assassinate,
then you're a dirtbag.
You're a problem. You're part of the problem.
You're a
part of the
dirtbag.
problem.
But this is the dirt road. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.